What's going on, everyone? Tanner Poppet here of Madrost and Poppet's Corner. Just reminding you that our new record, Charring the Rotting Earth, is now available at NoLifeTomatoRecords.com. That's right. Just go in the search bar, type in NoLifeTomatoRecords.com, and support. Again, NoLifeTomatoRecords.com. Now, let's check out the episode you came to see. What's going on, everyone? Welcome. Episode 96 of Poppet's Corner. And I am going all the way to I would say East Coast area with this one. I'm not too familiar with the North Carolina, but I'd like to bring on the drummer extraordinaire, multi-instrumentalist, Mr. Joshua Ward. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good, man. From XAEL, if I'm pronouncing the band name correctly, hopefully. So make sure people know the band name, how to properly pronounce it. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. This will be fun.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So how the show works? Again, I'm gonna pretty much go through your entire career, and if you'll indulge me, man, I'd love to get started.
Sure, bring it on.
I just kind of like to start with just you hearing music for the first time and kind of what was the actual track that you heard that kind of jump started this whole thing that why you're sitting in your studio right now.
Right, right. Man, it actually starts with a movie. It starts with Mortal Kombat. So it was like 94, 95, and I always like, Mortal Kombat was my thing. And when Scorpions fight, you can hear Fear Factory in the background. It's the song Zero Signal. And when I was a kid, I was sitting there going, what is that sound? It sounded awesome. And it was brutal, but it had this kind of techie sound, well, I don't know, like otherworldly sound. And I think that's what sealed the deal. And then, of course, weirdly, I think, the problem is, I think I joined a band. By the time I was 12 years old, I already joined an extreme metal band. So really early on, I just got a taste for a lot of different bands. But yeah, it started with Fear Factory. And then I started going more towards like Emperor and Demi Borgir and things like that. So, but my brother he liked metal. He liked Metallica one, and I would hear stuff like that. But Fear Factory's what done it. Mortal Kombat.
So you got into extreme music first? You didn't get into like classic rock or pop or I don't know, rap or disco or anything? It was just full on extreme music right from the get-go?
Yeah, my mama listened like Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet and stuff like that. And so, I don't know. So, it's like it didn't even dawn on me. I'm just sitting there. I love watching, but I love soundtracks. I love listening to movie soundtracks. So, that was kind of my thing. And even to this day, I love good scoring, almost classical music. But when I heard that Fear Factory play, it's like my brain went, something's changed. And I was like, I'm a musician.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that explains a lot to how we kind of came about today with the XAEL stuff. So which we'll get into. Don't worry, we won't skip it. But
Yeah.
so what about movie soundtracks? Did it for you? And we'll get to the extreme metal stuff. But I'm kind of curious with a classical. Did you have a classical background at all after this, or wanted to learn how to compose classically, or?
Yeah, well, I was, at this time, I might have been like, I don't know, 94. What was I like? I don't know how old I was at that time, but I was under 10 years old easily. So, but yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, listen to certain soundtracks, and oh my goodness, was that me? Turn this thing off. But let's see. I don't know. I wasn't classically trained, but I did eventually start studying musical theory and things like that. So, and probably besides metal, I would sit and just listen to really cool classical music. I would listen to Danny Elfman and composers like that. I just like the really weird vibes it gave, and plus it kind of took you to a different place. I love escapism. I love to get away. So.
Absolutely. And with this in mind, when did you start becoming aware of, like, I don't know, actually wanting to pick up an instrument?
Man, I beat on everything all the time. I mean, actually, I remember I used to get these cardboard boxes, and I had some Freon cans. I was poor, man, and so I just started beating Freon cans. But to be honest, I actually had pretty good. Actually, had a really good rhythm, very fast for some reason. And I remember on my boxes trying to play. I think I was trying to play like Metallica stuff, but I think I got to like a band like Slayer. I started hearing like Season and Abyss and Rain and Blood, and here I'm on boxes just playing it, and I could play it like when I was like 9, 10 years old, and so it just kind of led into other instruments. So I started with drums first, and one day I just dawned on me I love hearing all this music, but I couldn't play it. So I just sat down and I worked on piano. Then I went to guitar, and most of it was self-taught. But of course, along the way, I found really good musicians who I was like, "Hey, can you teach me some things?" And so I just kind of adopt that student mindset. Like every time I meet somebody who's phenomenal, I'm like, "Hey, can you show me something?" And to this day, that's kind of how I keep adding to my palette of instruments.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it does take some patience to do this, and I gotta ask, where do you feel that that patience kind of came from in your upbringing to want to learn, just to sit down to learn not just one instrument, but a multiple, array of instruments.
Right? I don't know. It's like, but when I was a kid, it was just a feeling. It was, it was. I don't trying to be too sentimental, but it was a rough upbringing. It was very dangerous where I lived to be, and so music was my way to just get away. And so I'm an ADHD. I'm very, hyper, and whenever I find something, I focus on it, you know, crazy. So it's like I'm all over the place until I find that one thing that locks me in. So, but as I grew into other instruments, it was mostly because I trained a lot of martial arts, and my teacher was an old school martial artist. So the discipline it took, it wasn't just like, this man a kick you across the throat. So it was this much complicated thing, and so that embedded, I think, discipline. Like, and his idea was, if you can train good, then you can play music good. If you can play music good, then anything you can do, you'll be good at. And he's right. Like when I went to med school, because I got a degree in Chinese medicine, and they talk
Oh,
about the
okay.
three great classics is music, martial arts, and medicine. If you can master all three, it provides a gateway to understanding anything. It lays a base foundation for life. And yeah,
Interesting. How long did you do martial arts for? When did you start? Around the time where you were kind of just first discovering music, or a little bit after?
it was actually right at the same time. Like as I grew up fighting a lot because of the home life, and because of that, and plus, so can I ask, where are you from?
I'm from Southern California.
Okay, okay. So I'm in the mountains up here in North Carolina. It can be very backwoods, like so backwoods that it's its own culture. And sometimes some of the stories that come out, people are like, "That sounds like a movie." It's like, no, this is growing up. It was rough. I'm trying to give the PG version because it's because of this complex thing. It's what led to me into music. I mean, growing up for me was like hide, make sure something bad don't happen, run away because your mother helps you escape, and then you meet a metal guitar player who adopts you in pretty much, and from then on is this career and almost this loyalty to music because it allowed me to get away from a very bad environment. And what kills me is a lot of people uh, will criticize like metal musicians smoking weed and all this. I was like, no, they made me go to school because I ran away. They took me in. They made sure I went to school. Matter of fact, we supposed to have a huge tour. My guitar player said, "No, you're going to school," And they made sure I was clothed, fed, school, and it just so happens I got to play metal every evening.
Right.
So it
Well,
was great.
and so it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of almost needed to to learn, some taekwondo or karate or martial arts, just to survive, right? It's kind of like what music was for you. It's like a, escapism, right? Like you can
Right.
kind of, okay, interesting. Now, how old did you say you were when you first started to do martial arts? Around 5, 6, 7
No, no,
era?
a little bit later. Maybe about 13 series. Because everybody, when they're like, "When I was 4 years old training," you weren't serious when you was 4 years old. You was picking your nose and hoping that somebody had a cheeseburger afterwards. And so, serious was 13. You know, but I took it very serious, and it became a foundation. And the art I train is a very complicated. It's a very rare art. It's from Okinawa. It's called that's complicated. But I'll say the more public name is like a uchinari. It's something that's not very known, but it was a lot different from American karate stuff. So the amount of discipline and dedication, it wasn't like going to an hour-long class. This
Right.
was a sometimes 11 hours.
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
yeah.
Wow.
So it
So
was a different dedication.
did so it did can I ask you, did it also provide you with like kind of like a safe haven almost? Because if you're going to, a structure such as that, for 11 hours, it could provide some, a lot of not just structure in your life, but a place to always go to, like your sanctuary. It's like, I'm protected here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Interesting.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And again, I think that's why I've dedicated my life to music and martial arts. It's kind of my thing because it gave me a way to break away from a horrible family, restart, and now I can pass this to my boy and whoever else. And so it was a very positive thing. It's funny writing this extreme stuff, blowing up planets,
Right.
but
Right.
it allows you to vent and become more at peace to some degree. You know.
No, it is. Excuse my ignorance here, but is martial arts kind of is it well known in in North Carolina or around that area for you? Is there a lot of like places to train for martial arts?
Oh, that's complicated. You'd have to have a whole, because I'm also a historian of the arts as well, and that's actually what,
Hmm.
like I said, it's kind of what pursued me. Because I also retained a master's education and classical Chinese medicine, which is like acupuncture and things like that. So I took it really serious. But the problem is most martial arts schools you go to are just made up crap. But there's a reason though, and it has to do more with the fact of how they earn money. Imagine you're a dude and you go to Okinawa, Japan, and you're like, listen, I know we bombed you and everything, and I know because Okinawa was not Japanese either. It used to be called its own kingdom called Uchina, and so hope my signal.
No, you're good.
Wee.
You're
All
good.
right, so Uchina was his kingdom, right? And no one knows
Hmm.
about it. But when the Japanese invaded, because of it's a complicated thing, but mostly pay tribute to China, and you can already imagine when Japan they probably wanted some intel and Okinawa. Well, Uchina at the time was like, nah, but there was more reasons they took over Uchina, recalled to Okinawa. They were brutal, so they've had a long history of people trying to mess them up. In short, they seemed that they could beat the crap out of people pretty good. And they were like, well, you got to teach us this. So they took an art that was called 2D and they brought it to Japan. They said, take everything Chinese out of it. And that's what became karate. But see, there are people still on the island that still train the old way that go back to China hand. Tu refers to the Tang Dynasty and D meaning hand, for a combative system, which was vicious, grappling season, a lot of throat stomps, right? So, but saying that, uh, if you go to Okinawa, Japan, and you're like, hey, teach me something, they'll be like, you pay me? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll teach you something. Block, punch, kick. There. And they send these people back to America. This is in the 70s. They open a bunch of schools, jumping up, kicking boards, calling it punch, block, kick. And unfortunately, they didn't get the real art. They got a really watered down version. But lately, there's a lot of lack of interest in Okinawa because future generations don't care. So there are some Westerners actually getting the real art. And it looks so different from these arts that, it's not 100% their fault, but a lot of these schools, they know it's made up crap. And they'll tell you, like, I want to give you a black belt, 3 years, hi-ya! And they do these things. And then you go in a fight, and a guy slaps you in the face with a chair and shoots your mama, and you're like, it didn't work.
Right. Well, what belt did you end up getting towards? I'm assuming. I mean, I don't even know what is past a black belt at this point, but for you personally, where did your training? How far did your training actually go to, as far as
Right.
a belt color?
Technically, I got a black belt or even a second degree black belt in Shotokan karate. That's actually where I started first. And then I went into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and did the whole MMA thing, which is cool if you're in sport. But, when you're on the street and three guys jump in, they start stabbing you and shooting at you, you can jump on the ground all you want. I'm just saying. I'm
Right.
going to watch you. So I needed something. And then I met this man. My first teacher introduced me to this old Marine who lived in Okinawa. And I never had my butt kicked so bad. It's so easy. Like, I'm about 270 pounds. I made a little bit of cheeseburger. But I need to cuss. But I'm a little bit big dude. This dude beat me half to death in a second. And then I got to go to Okinawa. I found the truth out. You come back here, you realize that it's a joke over here. It's what, you ever tell somebody, where do you send the kids? I send my kids to do karate. Over there, they're like, we teach you this to protect your life. And to protect your life means you might have to kill a man. So why are you over here going, And, I go over there and they beat me half to death. First day over there, they knocked me out. And I'm like, man, goodness gracious, y'all are mean. But they're the sweetest people. I love the Okinawan culture. So, yeah.
Right. Well, dude, and so you actually trained in Okinawa, right? So but it sounds like what you said, you actually flew there to get some training and brought it back here and stuff. And, with your training and whatnot, and with you even just picking up an instrument, did you find a correlation? And give me the correlation between the discipline with martial arts and applying it to, say, your drums for the first time, and why that specific instrument for you.
Right. Well, the thing is physics. And I think one of the things about our art, to give example, Western arts remind me of Western medicine. It's a protocol based thing. If a man punches towards your head, bring your hand up. But in a real fight, that ain't going to happen. In a real fight, you don't know what's coming. You're going to be sitting there and you get slapped in the teeth, and you're like, oh God, what happened? Right. Well, the best thing to do is go back to your foundation. Look at your foundation, develop a set of principles that is malleable and universal, right? And so the same idea goes to music, goes to drums. And so when it's the discipline, kind of like when I'm working a technique and I realize, man, I suck at this thing. Instead of me trying to learn a cheat or something, I start over. I go back to the fundamentals. I examine it. And then in that is where I find your answer. The answer is going backwards, not going forwards. You can't even go forwards because you didn't get it the first time. So keeping that set of principles helps me apply it to anything. So if I want to get better at guitar, I start playing. I'm like, okay, I suck. And then people start looking on YouTube for cheats. Go back to your fundamentals. Start examining. It's probably you haven't got the muscle memory yet. You haven't developed the skills yet. And so martial arts to me kind of gives me that.
But it also it sounds like it also teaches you patience, because people want to cheat when they have no patience. They don't have the patience to try and learn it, properly or whatever. Which is a sad thing, right? Now, just going to the drums or whatever. I'm just kind of curious, who were some of the drummers that inspired you just to pick up the drums?
Phew, man. Of course, hearing Dave Lombardo, Slayer. I loved. I was a big Rush fan. I loved Rush. I love Iron Maiden. And so like listening to Neil Peart play, Dave Lombardo. And then I got to more extreme stuff. Nick Barker was probably my first, like, whoa, he played with Demi Borgir and Cradle Fields. And especially when what is it? So I always had burnt copies of this. So I had to relearn the name of the albums. But it was Dysphoria, Misanthropic. Oh, man, I messed up the name. But Demi Borgir album.
Oh,
and hearing Nick Barker. Oh my God. I remember I was actually on tour. I was only 14 and I ran away from home, long story. And I was on the tour with members from the Mentors, which was pretty big. And we're doing a whole East Coast tour. And somebody put in Demi Borgir. And I was like, what the is that? His cymbal playing was like jazzy, but really fast bass drumming. Anyway, so then my next drummer was George Coleus. And when I heard him, I was like, all right, this is next level drumming. And I guess that's why I'm so blessed that now being I am a tech for him. Um, you know, it's crazy. My mentor, the guy I looked up to, and I, the bass player from now plays with us. He introduced me to
Right.
George. George see me play. George, he actually asked, "Hey, you want to be a drum tech? Help me out." So I go on the road. He's teaching me rudiments. We're out there. It's really cool. And then I got to tech for Pete Sandoval, who was with
Okay.
Morbid Angel, but in Fire. And he was the sweetest person. I gave him chicken nuggets all the time. But I got to meet my idols, and not Derek Roddy. Oh man, So these were my and like modern. You have why am I? How do I just lost his name? From Origin. How did I lost his name? He's gonna kill me too. I'm frame off praise, please. I didn't forget my name. John Longstreth. Yeah. So John and of course Dave McGraw from Cattle Decapitation, and watching them play that, and Francisco from Flesh God is what helped me start doing double strokes. So
Interesting. Now with walk me through just playing in your first band and getting the guys together to do this, because if you're what 14, 15 years old, say you come out off the road and playing with your buddies or
right. So the first band, that's not Zion. Again, a guy named Ralph Barnett. He was in a band called Truth of Sorrow. And in short, again, I had to run away from home. Long story short, my mama met up with him, told him that I need to get this boy out of here because it was a dangerous situation. And he loved playing metal. And pretty much she let me go stay with him a lot to get me out of the situation. So with that, we formed. I ain't gonna tell you the first name of the band. It's so bad. I think nowadays everything's so PC that like if I even said the name of it, people were like, "What?" Because already people are like, "Who would let a 12, 13-year-old run off with a bunch of 28 and 30-year-olds?" And I'm like, "It ain't like that. They literally saved my life probably." But yeah, that's it. So the band became Dead Speed. Then it became Blue Man's God, which became With Our Fume as Well, which was the project which got out to pretty good. And then now it's Zion.
right, which we'll get to all those, trust me. Now you coming off the road, what did the road teach you at such a young age that you applied maybe to how to do business in a band?
Be gangster. that's what I learned. The music industry is rough, man. uh, but no, it teaches you. Being on the road teaches you how to survive a little bit. It kind of reminded me because I did a little thing in the army for a while, and it's very similar. So it teaches you just how to cope and be pliable. Because a good example is I took some young guys on the road a few years ago, and it was their first time. Oh man, everybody for the first 2 days you're all like, "Oh, this is awesome." Then you're out there for like a week, and somebody farts, and they're like, "I hate you," right? They don't know how to just. You got to learn how to just let stuff move. You're probably gonna get mad. So it teaches you how to be more pliable as a person, how to be kind of a survivalist. You become resourceful. Man, you can eat all kinds of stuff. I eat tree bark.
Yeah,
I didn't really
absolutely.
eat tree. It'd be cool if I did.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I certainly can relate to that as a fellow musician and band guy myself. Done a lot of tours, so I can definitely relate to it. And say like when the band breaks down or whatever, you learn how to just go with the situation. And as Bruce Lee says, you got to be water. So that's what I always apply to myself too. You got to be water, right?
And
Um,
it's always going to happen too. You already expect
yeah,
that. If you're on the road, you're probably going to break down. This is going to happen. And I
yeah.
like watching people freak out. And I'm sitting there like, it's cool. We'll get it.
That's why you got triple. That's why you got AAA, man. That's what they're there for. Now walk me through just getting into the studio for the first time, maybe just to record a demo or an EP. Walk me through just I don't know, getting the know-how to do that sort of thing in North Carolina. Because again, I'm sure it's not like how it is in Southern California, with you have a plethora of just studios everywhere. So I mean, how does somebody like you kind of find a studio to kind of go to out there?
Man, I swear, I know poor people's everywhere, but sometimes I realize that being in the mountain area up here in North Carolina, whew, we don't have a lot of money. But even when you think you're making a lot of money, you go out to another state, and they're like, "You make how much?" I thought we make like -$2 in a food stamp. So, but our first studios were like people with Tascam, tape 4-channel recorders. So we're like Tascamming, trying to overlay drums. And then at them, I never even knew what quantizer was. You just had to do 9,000 takes. And then I look back, I'm like, it sucked, but it was fun. But actually, I'm the one who started this learning how to record. And I've been recording our stuff probably since I was like 16, 17. It was bad. Don't get me wrong. So I just kept adding and adding. And we never ever had a chance to go to a professional studio. There's a really nice one. Like there's a guy named Jamie King. He's recorded like from between the Barry to Me and stuff. He's about an hour up the road. He mastered the latest album, which was really cool. And man, see the price it takes to record. That's a house paint.
Yeah.
So we learned how to do it ourselves. So.
And you did it out of necessity, it sounds like.
Everything we've done, we've learned how to do video work, recording, everything we do ourselves because, you pay a video person, only $8,000. I'm like, $8,000? I give you 8,000 pennies, maybe. That's a lot of pennies too. I'm like, I got to get to work. I got to learn some skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you walk me through just the state of how the music, I don't know, it is in North Carolina, like the scene itself?
No, man, check it out. Get on Facebook and go to NC Metal as a forum. You will see the funniest, craziest stuff. Man, there are people that go on like from Ohio and New York just to see what is happening in the Carolina metal scene. Because we have these drama fights that just go on, and it's epic. I'll watch it. I'll be sitting there just watching. Yes, do it. But I wish I could say more about our local scene. I want to be more involved, but the cliques are so strong here that I just kind of bypass it now. I hate to say that. I kind of just focus on our international. Like we make more sales internationally anyway.
Right.
So,
well, it's not. It's not. I mean, I'm sure North Carolina is not like a big. I'm sure North Carolina is not a big market for metal in general. But where I'm going with this is, what kind of styles are prevalent in North Carolina around your specific area for a local kind of scene? I can't imagine there being, I don't know, a groove metal scene out there or something. So, like, what is the dominant metal factor out there?
Oh boy, here in the South, everybody likes Pantera and Lamb of God. If you go to anybody, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, I grew up Pantera and Lamb of God too, but it's like every band tries to recreate that, but they'll throw a little bit of Korn somehow in there. I don't know how they do that, but they do it. And you know what? It's cool, except, man, I'm trying to be nice about it because there are some sweet bands. There's some really, like the band The Reticent, our one guitar player's in it. What other band? I know the band Blackwater Drowning. They're really sweet people. Eighth Realm. They're on Napalm Records. They're actually from right up the road in Asheville. They're really sweet. I say really sweet, good people, because we have them fights where local bands will be like, we are headlining. No, we're playing a third spot. No, you're not. We're senior. And of course, even when we played our own show, our own CD release. All the bands got to fight that we said, we'll open the show. We'll open our own show because no one cares. At the end of the day, they're still going to see you. Be happy. And so we opened a show. Boom. It was great. And it's like, I don't know why they do that so much. To be honest, we've not played as many local shows. The last few times I've been out, we've just done some tours, East Coast Canada, Mexico, and stuff like that. So, but also, like I said, there are some unique bands coming up. I'm really excited about this new generation because there's kind of this generational thing that happened. Like people in their 40s, they had this like more of a fight. I felt like, and so the younger people are a little more open minded. So I'm kind of excited to see some new innovation come from some younger bands around here. So
now it kind of sounds like the word necessity it keeps getting brought up with your kind of journey so far. Like, you had to make your own rules due to necessity from kind of the local market within the metal scene, right? You kind of had to make your own rules. You kind of had that a necessity. Same with the martial arts and everything else.
right, right. And what's really good here is there is a amazing, by the way, there are some like secret diamond in the rough kind of musicians here. Like I met a guitar player not too far from here, one of the craziest guitar players I've ever seen. Like we have a lot of good musicians. I feel like I don't know if we're behind. It's a lot of education. That one of the biggest things I'm trying to do right now is educate bands about the business end of it. Like a lot of bands, they'll think, well, if they pay $15,000 to buy onto this whatever 3 shows of a tour, and we're gonna get out there, and these record labels gonna be out there, and we'll probably get signed. And I'm like, no, that probably ain't gonna happen. There ain't no rep out here, and if there was, they're sleeping on the tour bus. Most of the time, we're sleeping anyway. Kind of like when I was on Tour Nile last time. Everybody's just trying to sleep, and so I feel bad because these bands that are open to get out there, and they're like, and we're like, oh, sorry, but we're exhausted. We just rode like, the half of U.S. And so, and I feel bad, but they had that mindset, and what they do is, I call it the war tribe syndrome. Venues are like watering holes, and all the bands they compete for that watering hole, and they think if they get on the owner's good side, they get to open for all these national acts, that it'll provide this big opportunity. And again, I'm trying to explain to them that what's going to get you out there is focusing on your music, focusing on your brand, make a audience yourself. Look at how unique you have to be honest. Like, to be honest, I like critique. I'm with John Asher, the publicist.
Mm-hmm.
He is amazing. He is brutal too, man. He'll tell me, he's like, this video sucks.
And
I'm going, you are right, man. And so I go back. It always kind of stings, but you got to take it and go, I need to redo this video. He is right. It sucks. But bands here, oh my God, they cannot handle it. They're like, what do you mean? It's like, stop that. It's okay. That's part of learning and getting better. And so trying to give them that formula of to succeed, you gotta get on the road a little bit. You gotta develop some good merch. There's some business things you're gonna have to do here. And there ain't no label representative sitting there waiting for you.
Do you think you learned that mentality though just by your experiences, and maybe most of the local bands have not experienced what it's like to kind of be out on the road and the bigger picture, right? Like you're mentioning like what the smaller picture is, right? But you have the idea of like what the bigger picture should be. Just as myself, I've experienced a lot too, just as you. But do you think you learned the bigger picture just from experiencing life outside of like to quote you, your local watering hole?
Right. I think I had actually, can you rephrase it as a little bit? It kind of cut in at the last moment. I start piecing together my brain. I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, good. I'll say it again. Do you think that you learned the bigger picture, which is, I think you learned the bigger picture from experiencing life outside of North Carolina, being out on the road, experiencing life rather than being stuck in your a little box, as we'll say, as to quote you, your local watering hole, right?
Got you. It's really, I think it really is there's this environment here because it's fun. I used to play. I've been part of the scene since I was, 12, 13. I hate to say it, not to downplay, but you see the same bands doing the same things, fighting over the same thing, and they're not progressing. And like I said, I don't. If they're happy, it's different. But whenever they say things like, "Why ain't we as big as this band?" and it's like, "Well, I can tell you why, but you're gonna get mad at me." But yeah, it is the perspective of, and I don't know. It isn't the idea of experience. Experience provides perspective. So getting away from here, getting away from this uh, environment, because there is this like set environment. You here, what you do is you play this venue, and then you play a venue that's only 20 minutes up the road. Then you play this venue, and then you play that venue, and then you play again like 3 times in 1 month, and it's like, whew, you done exhausted everybody. It's you got to get out there, man. You got to cover some ground. And what they do is, and I hate to say it's a lot of this fake or false. We have a lot of promoters that are not actually promoted. They're like the owner's cousin named Tim, right? And they're like, he's a promoter. He's not. He don't know anything about marketing. He don't even know anything about the genres. He thinks he's gonna make cash. As musicians, especially in metal, we don't make the most money playing, and you have to have a enjoyment. Like me, if I play a show, maybe I'm not gonna get paid. I enjoy playing, though. That's what contracts are for. But
Right.
I'm gonna get me but yeah, they have all these false promises. These bands kind of buy into it a little bit too. They'll start like, this one promoter just got in trouble for this crap. He's telling bands that they'll do this. He'll give them open up for like Dying Fetus and all this, and this one band, they had to sell so many tickets to do it that they end up, to impress the promoter, they bought most of their own tickets and paid, no joke, about like $3,000. It was something crazy.
Wow.
And I'm going, what? Why would you do that? And I feel bad because you can see in their face that they're like, we messed up, didn't we? It's like, yeah, no, because at the end of the day, you just lost $3,000.
Right.
They're not going home going, I'm going to sign these guys. They're going home going, I'm going to eat.
Right. Well, given that you had just said, how can we help bands not have this mentality and kind of stick up for themselves? Just by saying no, we're not going to do that, and not feeling like you kind of are obligated to take every fucking show provided.
Yeah, and the thing is, whenever I do talk to a musician, I do try to provide, and it's subjective. I only have what I have, and I can provide. And I've been blessed to have some really cool mentors between members of like Nile and Grant Truesdale from Unleashed to Archers. Unleashed to Archers is huge. I mean, I think they had like the most views on Napalm Records last year or something. They're rocking it. Well, the guitar player, Grant, he is such a sweet person. He will actually give insight. He's the first person who signed us and everything. And he will like explain the industry and how it works. And to be honest, if it wasn't for him, maybe I wouldn't have as much. So it's that whole thing, just like martial arts. You don't know. Most people that go to a martial arts school, they don't know what they're getting is crap until they get in a fight. And then they're like, something sucks here. I just got beat up pretty easy. But then they're like, where is this good school at? And it's like, dang it. So in a lot of ways, I had to say I'm just fortunate. I'm blessed to have came across the right people, But I am a type of person that wakes up at 7 in the morning and I am working on music and band stuff for probably 7 hours. And if I go to work, get off, and it's 7 hours after work, every day I'm working on this. So through work, I think it leads up to the opportunities. So, but I've been blessed is the whole point of that.
So walk me through just forming Rap From Its Well. After changing the name from Blue Man's Gold in 2006 era, just walk me through the formation of it in such a kind of a weird time for metal, because you had kind of the new metal thing on its way out, and Lamb of God was kind of almost taking over the world during this time. It's like bands like Shadows Fall and whatnot. So just walk me through on why this was a particularly good time to form a band such as this.
Right. For us, music at that time was more, again, it was more than just forming a band. It was a brotherhood. We grew up, I seen these guys almost like pops, but we did take a big shift. So we were in a band called Blue Man's God, but everybody kept making Blue Man's Group references, and we were like, "What is a Blue Man's Group?" Then we finally seen Blue Man's Group. We're like, "Oh, no kidding, yeah, I get that." So at this time, I love fabricating weird stories. I love like Elder Scrolls. I love Morrowind. I love playing Morrowind, Knights of the Old Republic, that deep lore that came with stuff. And so I started building my own universe at the time. Well, to be honest, I cut my own album that was separate from what at the time we were playing more straight black metal. We got more into like, I don't know, weird Immortal mixed with Demi Borgir. But then I cut my own little album, which technically was the first album of Rufus Well, called Dimensions. And that was technically most of my side project that we mixed with some new members, and it came out. But yeah, so we changed the name to Rufus Well. Then people say, "What is a Rufus Well?" In my fabricated universe, Rafumit was the conscious, dogmatic name appointed by these people on this planet to black holes, these gravity wells, and they would talk about this consciousness called Rafumit, that if you were to travel and get caught into the event horizon, that this thing would come and mess with you. It was like a trickster deity of a sort, kind of Loki-ish. And we were just like, that's kind of a cool name. And our guitar player at the time, he's very redneck. He's like, "Hey, what did you use that name?" And so we did. His name was Ralph, and we're like, so we made a bunch of jokes like, "Ralph, you meant well," but it was Ralph. I mean, Ralph Humans Well.
Right.
But we liked the name, but by the end of it, everybody kept calling us Rasputin's Well, Refartments. That was my favorite. We got hacked. Somebody called us Refartments Well. I was like, that's pretty good, actually.
And I like the fact that you're applying so many things of your childhood to what you're doing now, because you said the escapism part, right? Building your own universes within the music, your musicality and whatnot, and just having a whole concept. And not only that, but also applying symphonic elements where you kind of listen to as a child into what you're doing now. So it kind of is coming full circle for me a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Right. Yeah, and that's the funny. I hate to say, I wear my existence very. It is what it is,
I do too.
And
so.
yeah, I love this lore. I love deep stories. I actually love emotional stories, which is why we've been trying to learn how to capture more emotional. It's like extreme metal, but what if there's a sad part? I want to see a sad part in this daggone song, or how to capture these relatable emotions, but on different planets. But that started in Rufus Well, and pretty much XAEL is in the same universe as Rufus Well. It's the exact same. Matter of fact, the gods that we made these beings called the Atai. The Atai are the first sentient life forms that was created out of this very complex. That we have the Eta and Ovo, which is the structure of the physical, tangible universe. And then you have these gateways. It was very M theory, very string theory. But what if it was a biocentristic universe? So you have a universe that life is a fundamental force, just like gravity, strong and weak nuclear forces, and what about electromagnetism? Life is a force, and life's purpose was the highest evolution of the universe self-replicating its ability to create, thus life. And so come the first beings from this thing called Ea. And Ea no one understands because all the stories are actually told from the point of view of a scholar trying to understand it. That's why there's so many weird, it's like, what is this? Well, it's, we don't know either. We're trying to understand. And so we create the Atai, which are the first beings. And you see sometimes some are formless, some actually look humanoid and have armor, but the armor isn't for fighting. The armor is more. They have kind of like a disease. Their frequency doesn't match up to certain dimensions, so they phase in and out. So the armor contains them as a vessel. And so these beings help propagate life. But the thing about the Atai is they're so proud. I mean, they can raise their hand and disintegrate you. You know, they can, because they have the ability to alter matter. But they don't know war. They don't have the mindset for war because it's not even on their thing. So whenever other organic life forms emerged, um, and they try to shit that, they were actually, when wars started happening, it took them off guard. So some of them start creating their own variants, a deviant kind of Atai, which create these more aggressive beings. And so we use that as a fundamental of this universe. There's these beings, the Atai, you have and we have these planets. It's kind of got an H.R. Geiger mixed with Mortal Kombat kind of feel. Mortal Kombat and H.R. Geiger had a baby with Prometheus.
Okay.
So,
and you're bringing it back to your childhood with the Mortal Kombat thing, right?
yeah. With our new armor, people were like, "You like more?" It's like we ain't mean to. We're just trying to put on a. If you're on a different planet, you need a respirator. So usually, we want to convert nitrogen on one planet and get your right levels of oxygen. You want to wear. We have a space, so we try to be somewhat like, what if you're on another planet? You would need a face mask. Plus, what COVID hit, we were like, this would be a good time. But now people just like, oh, you like Mortal Kombat characters, which, hey, that's cool
Absolutely.
too.
Now, branching off of your comment with the whole story behind or concept behind the band, how do you apply it musically? How do you know when to put in, I don't know, symphonic elements, or choose what riff to put them over, what's going to make sense? How do you know what you're kind of wanting to get out of it musically just within the concept itself?
Whew. All right. So we first make the concept. We sit down and we all sit down. We try to drive where the story's going to go. We make a storyboard. From the stories, we start outlining key events. So this one story, there's a big war. This one story, we have to cut a head off of a god and carry it around. And it's kind of Greekish. It actually speaks to us. So, well, that's pretty cool. One song, there's a very emotional part. Somebody might die or have betrayal, so we take that part and we outline these in like chapters. So pretty much every song is a chapter in the story. So then we go through each emotion. So this song, like for example, XAEL, the very first song, As Decreed, it's got everything we do has two meanings, but in short, it's pretty much the queen disintegrating so there's a war happening, and the whole album starts out with this war happening that us, the watchers, have went to quell this or calm this war down, and we brought back the instigator. And I think are you still there?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, sorry, my screen went weird. All right, so we bring back this instigator to the queen, and we got to there yet, but she's very complicated. Pretty much the song is her raising her hand up and disintegrating him right in front of us, and all pieces of him flying everywhere, and you can see like the heads falling over. And what it's doing is outlining the nature of this world that we were sold from a prison, which led off from our last album to here. The queen bought us because she's a collector, and she found that we have gifts. She's like, pretty cool. We become part of her elite guard. She is. But so in short, there's a love story. The main character falls in love with the queen, yada yada. So when she disintegrates this guy, it's there's this effect. If you watch somebody that you love disintegrate somebody, you're going to be like, holy crap.
Right. Now with. And obviously we're talking about the newest output, Blood Tide Rising. I'm tripping over my words today. I apologize. But but even going back to say like the last Airbiter in like 2018, what did you guys strive to do musically in between these records?
Right. And so you kind of went in and out, but I think I got it. So the last and let's see. So the album is called "The Last Arbiter." Was about he was trying to. Um, it actually started out as it's kind of like the movie Logan with Wolverine. It was very dismal. He's going through some crap. Well, the album starts out with this character who's actually a character from Refuse as well. The whole album XAEL, the whole concept XAEL was really was a personal project for a second, and I wanted it to be just about this character named Darmok originally. All right, and Darmok in short, and this will tie into why in the last Arbiter, but in short, he's immortal technically, but it's very brutal. Like it's not a good thing how he's immortal. He's in short, his body was he pissed off a god pretty much, and named Sotop Shal was his a Thai that was deviant, very Book of Enoch. He rebelled and came down to this planet, and they praised him like a god. Well, this general was given a task by one of the other Thai to spy on him. Well, he called him, and so when you die in this multiverse, I try to make it. We don't know what happens, but the beings are so advanced they can actually read your thoughts from your quantum energy. They can find out what you know. And the problem is Darmok already seen some things. He's seen this god thing do some things. So they pondered, how do we kill him, but not just kill him, like erase his existence. So they came up with what was called the Crucible of Titans, which was this idea that they would split the dimension and put him in this dimension. It's very Greekish, where they would they this one being, which was called Shry, which that's a song in XAEL. Shry, there was Shry, Kuru, and Vrol. I think it was some made up crap names, but these are really mean Atai, and they pretty much kind of like clone themselves in a way. It's very weird what they done, and they stalk him in this dimension and rip off his skin every day. But the thing what they've done is they have these artifacts that allow him to regenerate his body. And what they did is they literally stabbed it to his bones. And so he will always regrow his anatomy, even at the most quantum level. He will always regenerate long enough for them to rip off his skin again. But the idea is they want to, and they murdered his family. So they're walking behind him. They're explaining how they raped and killed his family, ripping off his skin. What they're trying to do, just like a computer, is fragment him. Like, what if they can fragment the quantum information left to such a way of distraught that if a being was to read it, they couldn't make out. So it was like, how do you murder someone's soul kind of idea? And they almost succeeded, but then he escaped out with some help. And that character is a character I liked. I like this guy. So this album started out with this character, but the problem is his body regenerates, but his brain doesn't. So his brain does the physical nature of his brain, but the computing power of his brain does not get any better. So as he gets older, how much computational power can you have? How much mental, you see horrible things. So he's starting to develop schizophrenia. He's starting to develop, and which plays in the album. There is a way you can theoretically kill him. I'm trying not to be too much. You have to let me know if it's too much information. But
All good. All good.
all right. But in short, if he's immortal as long as he meets the qualifications for life in a way, but he has such mental schizophrenic episodes that it's almost like narcolepsy. Because I'm actually narcoleptic, right? So I have some brain damage, a TBI that calls narcolepsy. So I put that quality on this character. When he has those episodes, you can theoretically murder him. But you can't kill his body. His body will always regenerate. But you can stop his cognition in a way. It's weird. And so that's what Shry is, this deviant Atai, which they call a demon pretty much,
Right.
is trying to murder him. And in short, he actually captures Shry. Eventually, this is later, he actually goes back and finds Shry, and he captures Shry. And he keeps Shry on a quantum tether, like a chain.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he done this, imagine you're immortal. You have a moral dilemmas. He believes if he fails at everything, if he can change this thing that wants to murder him if he could change its ways, then he would have succeeded at least one thing in his life. In other words, Schreier represents his guilt, like he always keeps his guilt on him. So it's kind of got some iconography and stuff with it, you know. So that's kind of what lays the foundation of how the story starts.
But how do you build off of it on a musical level between the two albums? Like, what did you guys do want to add to Blood Tie that you didn't on, say, the last Arbiter record?
Right. So, in the shortest way possible, the first album ends with us getting imprisoned. All right. So the second album, we start with us getting we're sold off to this queen. Right. So the first album, we were trying to go more folky because we were at different places in life at this time. And not to get all, again, sentimental, I was married. I was together almost 17 years, had a child. Wow. Everything was good. Right. And I felt happier. So I had to tap into older memories to find that upset feeling again. Right. So it came out folky, but with extreme metal still, but it had these really good curves with a more melodic overtone. But this album, we were trying to make a more folky. Cause, you know, it's a space thing, but it's kind of like Thor Ragnarok in a way. You know, you got this kind of folky feel in space. It's kind of cool, but a lot of bad things happened. You know, in the last 2 years. In short, divorced unexpectedly, which lost a lot, maybe too much. Some of our other band members, they lost a lot. One band member, he's fighting for his son. I'm fighting for my son. Lots of bad, you know, that we didn't have control over. So we're pretty mad. So the pandemic hits at the same time. We're like, you know what? I am so mad. So this album come out way more heavier than we intended. So
interesting. but here's where I'm going with this too. I also feel you applied as better songwriters in essence, where it's, you know, these songs aren't like 8 minutes long. You know, these are shorter pieces of music, but here's where I'm going with this. A lot of symphonic bands tend to overdo it as far as having, you know, a big spacious kind of song and you know, blast beats fucking just the whole 9-10 minutes long. But you guys kind of did that in a shorter time span, but you didn't at the same time. Like I actually really enjoyed listening to this album for, you know, for the first, second, third, fourth, you know, I've listened to it a lot now, and I enjoy it every single time. And I guess where I'm going with this is you guys applied a more direct, you know, style to the songwriting that maybe you hadn't had on the last Arbiter record.
Exactly. Actually, there's a few reasons. One is we actually talk about this. People's attention spans suck. So you get past 4 or 5 minutes, I feel like you already start like I love 6 and 7 minute songs. I love a 10-minute song, but people don't in a mass. So we actually purposely were like, what we did is if there was a song that was 9 minutes, we changed the intros. We made it a little bit different, maybe the time signatures a little bit, and we made it a second song because, and not to mention, it's kind of like a good movie. If you can convey quality stuff within a shorter time frame, I think it beats out trying to just push and keep elongating this long journey. We want it to be more of a quick impact than this. Mostly because of people's attention spans. And actually, Grant Truesdale, you know, guitar for Unleashed Archers, he actually brought up one time because Refuse as Well is very symphonic. Like, if you listen to most of it, it's very symphonic. And I love making symphonies. But he brought up a good point. He said, man, put the guitars in the foreground. Make what you're going to do live the essence of what you're going to, you know. So if you have backing tracks, people don't want to come to see backing tracks all the time. They want to see you play, make that the focal point. And so that's kind of what we did. We made the guitars more guitar-centric than to have these giant elaborate keyboard parts throughout the whole mix. Because we don't have a keyboard player. Them
Right.
things are, they're hard to
Well,
find.
absolutely. And speaking, and I can speak for this. Our last record had a lot of symphonic elements to it. Um, but how we applied it is we needed to make we applied it as making that as a melody over, say, like a not a boring riff, but like just a foundational riff, as I'll call it, right? But with you guys, I mean, there's so many symphonic elements, I couldn't even get started on it. I'm just kind of curious with you, with choosing the parts on where these symphonic parts should go. How did you find the balance in terms of the mix for not making the guitars way too loud to where you couldn't even hear any of the symphonic elements? It's kind of a balanced mix, and this is another key element to where I was going with this. Is it's a perfectly balanced record, especially in extreme music with symphonic elements. So how did you guys find the balance in terms of the mix?
Oh, it's kind of nice to hear that. But yeah, it was it's I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it. Um, well, I don't know if it'll tie in. I ramble a lot, so you have to like bring me back in. But different instruments have different feelings. So if I'm playing this chugging, and I want to make this, I want my brass to sweep in just enough, right? And then you get this, but then we might have a clean vocalist because I do
Mhm.
clean vocals and my other guitar player does clean vocals. I have the more folky sound. He has this really cool, people say Vortex all the time.
Yeah, it's
He's like,
Demo.
oh,
It totally reminds me of Demo, dude.
it's
I'm
very
not gonna
Vortex.
lie.
Which I'm happy. I love that sound. I was like, man, that was awesome. And but uh, so we actually do plan according to the feel of that moment. We're very momentary. It's like in this moment, this brass should be doing this, but I need the guitars. So we actually bump the guitars a little bit here to be more chugging out. But we might draw them back in the chorus and let the keys swell a little more, especially with more vocals. So it's purely a combination of trying to find the right texture combination and what emotion are we trying to convey. If we want this epic, look at us kind of feel, we'll bring the keys up a little bit. Weirdly,
Right.
we use less. We focus more on like brass swells and but we use a lot of. We're going to be integrating coming up more actual folk instruments, live folk
Okay.
instruments.
So
But we're self making these things.
like violins and cellos and all that. Okay.
Actually, our singer plays cello. He was a celloist in school. He could play it really well, and he actually did some stuff on some tracks. But he's really wanting to figure out because live, imagine we got to fly to Mexico and taking this giant cello. It ain't gonna work. Probably
No.
it costs too much money. So we're making like this little Lear kind of thing that we're wanting to integrate in, and try to integrate more stuff as part of our live, even our instruments, down to the point where we're talking about some of our instruments are like our weapon. When we're going into war, you might have a sword on your back or a spear. Well, our
Right.
singers have like this little drum thing that he carries, and this little. And so we're trying to come up with these really crafty ways to use even our instruments as our props to make us look more, in the world. So
Totally.
um,
Well,
I
so
diverge.
absolutely. Well, dude, in turn, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. Hopefully, we can do this again. I'd love to bring you back on with whenever you got some new stuff. And just tell us and the listeners and the watchers here. Where can people find Blood Tide Rising, and especially anything from you guys? Because while I was searching for it on Bandcamp, I only found a couple things. So if I wanted to go and purchase these, this absolutely killer record that I can't highly recommend enough for extreme metal fans, especially if you want something a little bit different than what's out there today. The XAEL record is perfect for that. So where can people find the record?
Right. And as a shame, because I do hear a lot of people ask why on Bandcamp. It's through Pavement Entertainment, and I think they go through the Sony Red X thing. So that's Sony, I think, takes care of that. So they use uh, their own kind of thing when it comes out. So you can go to Pavement Entertainment. You can actually go to um, uh, Pavement Entertainment website. I need to figure out what that is. But the easiest way is to go to www.eldersverse. So that's
Okay.
ELDERSVERSE.com. And we have lore, we have merch, and we have direct links where you can just click it and you can get our digital stuff and our physical stuff. So again, www.eldersverse.com. That's
Uh,
kind of like our umbrella word of
right.
our multiverse. So
And what do you guys have coming up? Lastly, what are you guys planning on maybe doing, like a West Coast thing or a North American thing or a European thing once things start to open up back up again?
well, first thing we're doing a video for every song. So that's what we're working on. We got a video coming out probably next week. I just finished doing a whole green room to finish the rest of the videos, but then we're going to be looking at doing touring as soon as we can go to tour. Actually, we have a really big tour. I'm just waiting to get the confirmation for announcing. But as soon
Right.
as it announces, oh, I'm telling everybody because I grew
Absolutely.
up listening to that. So, but yeah,
Absolutely,
definitely a
man.
big tour.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to bring you back on and promote it for you. So, um, dude, Joshua, thank you so much for giving me a couple minutes of your time to do this. I really appreciate it, man.
Hey,
So,
thank you very much.
absolutely, man. Another episode of Popper's Corner. I'm out of here, guys. Cheers.